They threw me away, as if I were nothing. But the billionaire's kids, they chose me. Why? I mean, why would they do that? What really happened inside that house? Today's story is truly something special, fascinating even. So, are you ready? Make yourself a cup of coffee or a warm cup of tea. Sit back, relax, and let's sink into this story together. In the heart of Austin, where the Texas sun scorches rooftops and longhorns graze beyond gated communities, there stood a mansion too pretty to be peaceful. Inside, two billionaire twins, Abby and Adam Harrington, both 7 and full of sass, had burned through 15 maids in 3 years. Their mother had died too soon, and no heart seemed good enough to fill the silence she left behind. Their father, Jack Harrington, a widowed CEO of one of Texas's largest construction firms, tried to balance spreadsheets by day and tantrums by night. But each morning, as burnt toast curled into smoke and juice spilled across marble floors, he wondered if he was losing the only thing he still had, a family. Then one day, a woman from East Texas showed up with nothing but a second-hand purse, worn-out sneakers, and a fire inside her bones. Her name was Valerie. She had no children of her own, no fancy degrees, no blessings left from the world, just grit. And a kind of pain only women who've lost everything carry quietly. The twins didn't smile. They didn't greet her. One poured milk on the floor. The other told her to leave, but she didn't flinch. Because Valerie wasn't here to survive. She was here to reclaim her life. What happened next didn't just change the twins. It shook the very foundation of a home built on wealth but lacking warmth. And in a world where second chances are rare and women like Valerie are forgotten, this Texas story might just remind you of what love, real love, can still rebuild. Jack Harrington used to run the biggest construction firm in Central Texas. Bridges, highways, high-rise towers, you name it, he built it. Folks called him the Concrete King. But behind the steel and concrete of the city stood a man whose home was crumbling. Since the loss of his wife, 3 years had passed like a hot wind through a prairie, fast, dry, and unkind. He'd buried his sorrow in work and poured his soul into raising the twins, Abby and Adam. But the weight of fatherhood was heavier than any steel beam he ever hoisted. It was a Monday morning, the kind that sneaks up on you before you've had your coffee, the sun barely up, the kitchen already looked like a war zone. Toast was smoking like an old Chevy in July. The kettle screeched as if possessed. A dozen eggs scrambled themselves into chaos, while orange juice puddled under the fridge. Jack stood barefoot in pajama pants and a wrinkled UT Longhorns t-shirt, one sock stuck to the dishwasher door. He held a spatula in one hand and a paper towel in the other, both defeated. "Kids." "Breakfast!" he hollered, voice cracking like an old screen door. No answer. Then came the thunder, not from the sky, but from the hallway. Stomp, stomp, stomp. The twins charged in like a storm front. "I'm wearing pink today," Abby announced, sunglasses already perched like a movie star. "No way, blue," Adam retorted, waving his t-shirt like a battle flag. "We wore blue yesterday, dummy." "So?" "I'm not a girl." "Well, I'm older. By 5 minutes." "Still counts." Jack closed his eyes and took a deep breath, the kind a soldier takes before stepping into the trenches. "Kids, for the love of sanity, sit down and eat." He placed 2 plates on the table. Toast, eggs, juice, a tiny slice of peace. They took one bite. "Daddy, this tastes like boot leather," Abby said, squinting like she'd been poisoned. "Mine's salty like seawater," Adam added, spitting into a napkin. Jack collapsed into a chair, fork in hand, pride in tatters. "Y'all ran off 15 maids," he muttered, more to himself than them. Abby dabbed her mouth with a napkin. "They didn't understand us, Daddy. We're special," Adam chimed in. "You say that all the time." Jack nodded slowly. "Yes, you are. But special doesn't mean impossible." That morning, the chaos didn't stop at breakfast. It followed Jack through every room of the house. He hunted for socks like they were buried treasure. Braided Abby's hair while she yelled it hurt. Tied Adam's shoelaces, only to be corrected. Miss Peace tied them better. Lunchboxes were packed and repacked. Juice was spilled on a clean shirt. The toothbrush was found in the toilet, again. By 8:45 a.m., Jack was sweating through his dress shirt. By 9:12, when he reached his office, he looked like he'd just finished a full day of roofing in 104-degree heat. He collapsed into his leather chair, chest rising like a man who'd just outrun a bear. "Sir," said Linda, his secretary, "your noon meeting got pushed to next week." "Thank God," Jack whispered, eyes shut. "I wrestled 2 wildcats this morning." "Still no nanny?" "Nope, and don't call the agency. I need someone who can handle my kids and teach 'em manners." "That's a tall order," Linda said. "Then find me someone who's not tall," Jack replied, "but grounded, real, like Texas oak strong." Somewhere on the east side of town, Valerie Thompson's phone was about to ring. And the mansion, full of noise but empty of heart, was about to meet a storm of a different kind. Not loud, not messy, but steady and unshakable. On the far side of Austin, beyond the glass towers and boutique cafes, lay a tired neighborhood clinging to better days. There, in a narrow brick house with cracked shutters and a sagging porch swing, Valerie Thompson sat motionless on the edge of her twin bed. The fan above creaked like an old man's knees. The air smelled like boiled okra and resentment. Valerie wasn't sick. She wasn't even resting. She was surviving. Once, not long ago, she had been somebody, senior project manager at the Texas Department of Transportation. Oversaw $20 million in public works. Drove a navy blue Ford Fusion with leather seats and a Bluetooth stereo. Wore heels that clicked confidently across courthouse floors. Folks knew her name and respected it. But love, as they say in country songs, makes a woman do crazy things. Martin had charm. He smelled like aftershave and spoke soft like gospel radio, said all the right things. "You work too hard, baby. Let me take care of you." His mama, Georgia, clutched her Bible in one hand and judgment in the other. "A working woman dries up her womb," she warned. "Give up that job and let God bless your belly." Valerie, caught between hope and pressure, chose to step down from her career. She turned in her badge, packed up her office, and traded her title for a crock-pot and coupons. Months turned into years. Hope turned into silence. And still, no baby. That's when the venom started. "Empty crib, empty soul," Georgia hissed one morning. "Dry like the West Texas wind," Martin mumbled under his breath one night, and every insult stuck like a burr on an old quilt. Valerie cleaned, cooked, prayed, endured. Until one Thursday morning her phone rang. Linda's name lit up, the only friend she had left. "Girl," Linda whispered, "are you still looking for work?" Valerie blinked. "You know I am. My boss is desperate, needs a nanny. Lives out in Barton Creek, pays real well. But those kids..." "Whew, baby rattlesnakes." Valerie smiled, though her lips barely moved. "Tell him I'll come. I don't care if the kids bite. I just need out of this house." "You sure? You'll be starting from scratch." "I've got nothing left to lose," she whispered. Just then a voice from the living room thundered, "Valerie, come fix me hot water, lazy woman." Georgia's voice was sharp as barbed wire. Valerie stood slowly, tying her scarf with hands that used to sign $1-million contracts. She boiled the water, stirred the grits, pretended not to hear the gossip about a fresh young girl from Alabama that Georgia was planning to bring in as a second wife for Martin. That night, after dishes were done and insults had settled like dust, Valerie sat by the front window. The street outside was quiet. A dog barked once, then silence. She looked up at the stars, pale and flickering behind smog, and for the first time in years she allowed herself to wonder, what if I could start again? Somewhere no one calls me cursed. Somewhere I'm not just tolerated, but needed. The next day she washed her one nice blouse in the sink, ironed it on the floor using a folded towel and steady hands, slipped on her scuffed sneakers and caught the 7:10 a.m. city bus heading west. When she arrived at the Harrington Tower, her reflection stared back from the glass doors. Tired eyes, strong jaw, and a spirit still standing. "Let's see what the rich folks got for me," she muttered. She wasn't just walking into a job. She was walking into a chance to become someone again. The Harrington mansion stood tall and proud in Barton Creek, a fortress of stone and glass wrapped in manicured silence. But the day Valerie Thompson stepped through those front doors, peace wasn't part of the welcome package. The foyer smelled like lemon polish and old money. A grand piano rested under a chandelier big enough to light a church revival. On the leather couch sat the two reasons no maid had lasted longer than a bottle of milk in July. Abby and Adam Harrington. 7 years old, dressed to impress, staring straight ahead like royalty. Both holding iPads like shields, eyes never leaving their glowing screens, Valerie smiled softly, her Sunday school warmth breaking through years of battle scars. "Good morning, y'all. I'm Miss Valerie. You can call me Val." No response, not even a blink. She tried again. "Would you like some breakfast?" Adam sighed, loud and exaggerated, then dropped his iPad on the couch. "We don't like oatmeal. We don't like cereal. We only eat French toast cut into triangles with powdered sugar. That's how Miss Peace did it." Valerie nodded like a poker player hiding her hand. "Well, I'm not Miss Peace, but I do make some mean triangles." Abby lifted her sunglasses and stared. "Do you know how to braid hair? Because if you mess it up, I'll scream." "I've braided hair through 2 church choirs, 3 weddings, and 1 tornado warning," Valerie replied, smiling. "You'll be just fine." But the day was far from fine. Within the first hour, Adam spilled orange juice across the dining table and blamed it on the ghost of Miss Peace. Abby fed scrambled eggs to her invisible puppy named Sparkle. They ran through the house like squirrels loose in a feed store. Valerie cleaned up quietly. No yelling, no sighing, just humming a hymn from back home. Upstairs, behind the staircase, Jack Harrington watched it all with his morning coffee in hand. He sipped, shook his head, and muttered, "This one won't last the week either." But Valerie wasn't cut from cheap cloth. By day 2, she had studied their habits like a hawk at a 4-H fair. She learned that Abby hated wet socks and that Adam refused to eat if the juice was too pulpy. She watched what made them snap, what made them pout, and what made them giggle, though those moments were rare as rain in August. Then came day 4. That morning, before the twins came home from school, Valerie gathered every toy in the house, the iPads, stuffed bunnies, remote control cars, even the glitter glue kits, and tucked them into a blanket. She zipped it tight, slid it under their bed, and waited. The bus dropped them off at 3:45 p.m. sharp. At 3:52, the first scream echoed through the house. "My iPad is gone! Where's Mr. Bunny?" They tore through rooms, flung open closets, lifted couch cushions, and checked behind curtains. Nothing. Valerie sat on the porch swing, sipping iced tea like nothing happened. "Miss Val, someone stole our toys," Adam yelled. "Should I call the police?" she asked calmly. "Yes," Abby shouted, tears welling up. Valerie stood and looked them in the eyes. "I'll make you a deal. If I help you find your things, you have to promise to stop pouring milk on the floor, stop screaming during breakfast, and start treating me like a human being, not a vending machine." They blinked, then slowly nodded. 2 hours later, Valerie found the toys under the bed. The war of wills was over. The truce had begun. And for the first time in that house, something stronger than money started to grow: respect. By week 3, the Harrington mansion felt different. The kids still had sass, but it was softer now. They brushed their teeth without threats, ate their toast in triangle pieces, and sometimes, just sometimes, even said please. Jack Harrington began sleeping past 5 a.m. for the first time in 3 years. He'd come home to laughter, the smell of fried chicken or peach cobbler in the air, and 2 children who actually looked forward to homework. But while one house was healing, another was falling apart. It happened on a Thursday evening. Valerie had just gotten off the bus near her old neighborhood, bags of groceries in one hand, a folder with the twins' drawings in the other. Her shoes clicked along the cracked sidewalk like they were counting down to something. When she turned the corner to her house, her heart dropped. There on the porch sat a woman in bright red lace, legs crossed, chewing gum like she owned the place. Her suitcase rested beside her like she wasn't just visiting, she was moving in. Before Valerie could speak, the front door swung open. Mama Georgia. Face painted with triumph, scarf tied high like a general about to declare war. "Well, well, look who finally came home," she said, arms folded. "Come meet your sister wife." "My what?" "Your husband's new bride," Georgia said matter-of-factly. "Straight from Alabama, fertile as spring soil." Valerie's grip on the grocery bag tightened until the carton of eggs cracked. Just then, Martin appeared from behind the screen door, holding a sack of takeout and humming like nothing was wrong. "You heard, Mama," he said without looking at her. "Either accept it or leave." For a long moment, Valerie stood frozen. The wind blew dust across the porch. The woman in red flipped a magazine page. No one blinked, but she didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't beg. She turned around, walked down those steps like a ghost in daylight, and never looked back. That night, her phone sat silent on the floor beside her mattress at Linda's house. Valerie didn't touch it. She didn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, replaying every word, every look, every insult. "You gave up your title, your career, your womb, and now they're trading you out like expired milk," Linda said softly, offering a cup of sweet tea. "I gave them everything," Valerie whispered. "And I became invisible." The next few weeks passed in slow motion. Valerie returned to work at the Harringtons, a smile on her face and storm clouds in her soul. She braided Abby's hair, laughed at Adam's jokes, cooked dinner like a woman possessed. But every night, back at Linda's, she stared out the window like a soldier waiting for one more battle she hadn't trained for. Then came the final blow. One afternoon she got off the bus and saw her belongings, 2 suitcases, a laundry basket, and a framed photo from her old job, sitting by the front gate like junk on bulk trash day. She knocked once. Twice. Mama Georgia cracked open the door. "My pastor says you cursed the house. That's why the new girl ain't pregnant yet. You're a witch. Leave before you poison another womb." The door slammed shut. Valerie stood there, sun setting behind her, casting a long, tired shadow across the street. She didn't cry, didn't curse, just picked up her bags and walked on. Sometimes storms don't come with thunder. Sometimes they come with silence. And a woman finally deciding she's had enough. It had been 6 days since Valerie Thompson had stepped foot inside the Harrington mansion. 6 days since Abby's hair had been properly braided. 6 days since Adam had eaten anything other than mac and cheese out of a box. 6 days since the house had felt like more than just walls and wealth. On the 7th day, something changed. It was a quiet Sunday evening in South Austin. The cicadas buzzed like they always did this time of year, and the sweet smell of honeysuckle drifted through the open windows of Linda's little house. Valerie sat curled up on the couch in an old flannel robe, her hair a tangled mess, eyes swollen from a week of silent crying. She hadn't answered the phone, hadn't turned on the TV, hadn't even checked her email. She just existed. Then came the knock. 3 soft raps on the front door. Linda peeked through the curtain, then turned with a gasp. "Val, you might want to come see this." Valerie shuffled over, expecting another church lady with a flyer, or maybe a nosy neighbor. But standing on the porch were 2 small figures, and a tall one behind them, Abby and Adam Harrington, and their father, Jack. The kids didn't wait for an invite. They barreled through the door like joy let off its leash. "Miss Val!" Abby screamed, wrapping her arms around Valerie's waist. "Are you sick?" Adam asked, tugging at her hand. "You look like a zombie from Netflix." Valerie laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from a place cracked but not broken. "We missed you," Abby whispered, her voice trembling. "The food doesn't taste like yours. Daddy burns the toast. The house feels weird." "We can't sleep. We brought you something," Adam said, holding up a Ziploc bag filled with crushed Oreos. "It's all we had left from snack time." Jack stepped forward, removing his ball cap like a man standing in front of a judge. "Valerie, I heard what happened," he said gently. "Linda told me." Valerie tried to speak, but nothing came out. Jack looked her in the eyes, steady and sure. "You don't owe us anything. But you've done more for my family in a few months than I managed in 3 years. You gave my kids a mother's touch when they had none. You gave me back sleep, sanity. You gave this house a heartbeat again." Valerie blinked fast, trying to hold back tears. "I don't know what your next step is," Jack continued. but if you need a place to land, our door is wide open. Rent-free, no strings, just peace. And a kitchen that desperately misses your cooking. Valerie looked down at the children, one clinging to her robe, the other wiping his nose on her sleeve. I don't want to be a burden, she whispered. You're not, Jack said. You're the blessing. For a long moment the room was still. Then Abby reached up and touched Valerie's face. Come home, Miss Val. I'll chase the nightmares away for you, like you did for me. And in that moment, surrounded by crushed Oreos, messy hugs, and words she never thought she'd hear, Valerie felt something stir in her chest. A door hadn't just opened, a lifeline had been thrown. She didn't say yes right away, but that night, long after they'd left, she sat in Linda's guest room, staring at the ceiling, and at 11:32 p.m. her fingers finally moved. The message was simple. I'll move in tomorrow. The house was quiet, not the kind of quiet that brings peace, the kind that weighs on your chest like a winter blanket you forgot to fold away. The fan above Valerie's head spun slow and steady, whispering to the silence like it didn't want to wake her thoughts. But Valerie wasn't asleep, not even close. She lay flat on the old pull-out bed in Linda's guest room, her borrowed suitcase at the foot, her hands clasped like she was waiting for some kind of holy answer. The day had stirred something in her, the twins' hugs, Jack's voice. The way he said, "You're the blessing," like he meant it with every cell in his body, and Abby's tiny hand on her cheek. Come home, Miss Val. But doubt, well, doubt doesn't knock. It walks right in like it pays the bills. What if I move in and folks start talking? What if his neighbors think I'm chasing a man? What if Mama Georgia hears about it and starts spreading more lies? What if I'm just a broken woman too desperate to say no? But another voice whispered back, what if, this is God giving you a second chance? Valerie sat up, feet on the cold hardwood floor, robe wrapped around her like armor. She glanced at the digital clock on the dresser, 11:26 p.m. Her phone rested beside a half-drunk cup of chamomile tea. She picked it up, stared at Jack's name in her messages, thumb hovering like she was afraid the screen might judge her. For a long time, she didn't type a word, just sat there. Remembering how her mother used to say, you can't pour from an empty pitcher, baby, you got to fill yourself up too. Remembering the day she quit her job. The way her badge looked lying on the kitchen counter next to a grocery list and a cheap bouquet of gas station roses. Remembering how Mama Georgia once said, a woman without a child is like a well with no water. And yet, here she was, still standing, still breathing, still needed. At 11:30 she unlocked her phone. At 11:31 she opened the message thread. At 11:32 p.m. she typed, I'll move in tomorrow. Thank you for seeing me, not just what I lost. She hit send before fear could stop her. The second the message disappeared, Valerie felt something lift off her chest. Not everything. Grief doesn't just pack up and go. But something shifted. Something gave. In the stillness, she looked out the window. The street was dark. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. The moon hung low, heavy with stories no one had written yet. And in that moment, Valerie Thompson, once discarded, once silenced, once broken, whispered to herself, let them talk. I've earned my right to be whole. Then she crawled back into bed, pulled the blanket up to her chin, and for the first time in what felt like years, she closed her eyes without bracing for impact. Tomorrow she would step into a new life, not as a maid, not as a burden, not as a woman defined by what she could or couldn't give, but as herself. Valerie, full, chosen, free. The next morning the sun didn't rise. It bloomed, like the sky itself knew something had changed. Valerie stepped out of Linda's house just after 7 o'clock a.m. She wore her good church shoes, the black ones with the little gold buckle. Her hair was pinned neat, scarf folded crisp, her suitcase rolled softly over the sidewalk, steady and sure. No longer fleeing. This time, she was walking toward something. When she arrived at the Harrington estate, the front door opened before she could knock. Abby barreled out in fuzzy slippers, screaming, Miss Val! Adam followed, dragging a blanket and holding a lopsided paper heart with the words "Welcome Home" written in marker. Jack stood behind them, hands in his pockets, trying not to smile too wide. "We made you room in the upstairs guest suite," he said. "Bigger closet, better view," Valerie chuckled. "I'll take it, long as the coffee pot works." "You bet your boots it does," Jack said. From that day forward, life didn't magically become perfect, but it sure became possible. Valerie braided Abby's hair each morning, packed lunchboxes with care, and taught the twins how to pray before dinner. She cleaned, yes, but more than that, she nurtured. She listened when Adam got quiet. She sat with Abby during storms, and slowly, something else happened. Jack Harrington began humming again, little tunes in the kitchen while drying dishes, the kind of tune a man hums when the world feels manageable again. Valerie no longer felt like a guest. She felt like part of the rhythm of the house, like a song that had always belonged, just waiting to be played. One night while tucking Abby into bed, the little girl asked, "Do you think God gives people new mommies?" Valerie paused. "Sometimes he gives them new hearts instead." And the rest follows. Downstairs Jack heard her words. He didn't say anything, just stood still in the hallway, eyes closed, heart full. Outside, the stars blinked over Austin like they always did. But inside that house, something sacred was being rewritten, not just a story of grief, but of grace, not just survival, but resurrection. And as Valerie drifted to sleep that night, she hummed softly to herself, not a hymn of sorrow, but of strength, a new song in her soul, a song only the broken ever learn to sing. Life doesn't always knock you down with noise. Sometimes it does it with silence, with closed doors, with forgotten birthdays and empty dinner tables. But if Valerie Thompson's story teaches us anything, it's this. A woman's worth is not tied to what she can give, a paycheck, a baby, a title. It's in who she is when the world stops clapping. Valerie was cast aside by a husband, a family, a society that only values what it can count. But the day she chose to rise, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in quiet courage, the world made room for her. In a mansion once ruled by tantrums and cold toast, she planted kindness. And from that, a home grew. So if you're sitting alone tonight, wondering if your best years are behind you, hear this, from one Texas soul to another. Sometimes your greatest season comes after the fall, and sometimes it takes losing everything to finally come home to yourself. What would you have done if you were in Valerie's shoes? Would you have stayed and fought for love, or walked away to reclaim your peace? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share this story, and tag someone who needs a second chance today.